Caro, why should someone who is listening right now care about mental health in sales?
I'd say because in sales, all we have as tools is ourselves. So whenever ourselves as a tool, myself as a tool breaks, there's no replacement for myself. So why shouldn't we all care about ourselves much more than we actually
I
do
like
these
that. I
days?
like that idea with the tools. As an actor, you always talk about instrument. So your body is your instrument. If your body isn't
Yeah.
working, you can't play music, you can't do art, right? So
Yeah.
what do you feel like, or how is the attitude towards mental health then from everyone else? Because I feel like there's such a weird vibe when people talk about mental health. How would you define that?
I'd say it depends on the generation that you
Hmm.
were born in, especially for millennials and Generation Z and later generations. I think they're very aware of why mental health really matters and why you should properly care about yourself. For boomers and the elderly, it might sound a bit weird that they're is this new trend that recently, aka 30
Hmm.
years, came up with burning out and being overworked and stuff like that. So I think that, especially for the younger generation, it's great that people start speaking up. But still, there's this weird hesitation to really talk about these kind of things publicly. So not only if you're a millennial or a Gen Z person, but also for boomers that just think that they will not be, taken as proper business partners, a proper salesperson, people afterwards, because people might give them the burnout stamp or something like that. So I'd say people are aware of the fact that mental health is a thing, but they might still have a hard time talking about it because I'm not
Hmm.
affected. It's always
Yeah.
the others that are affected, and I'm super mentally healthy and everything is fine until you can't
Hmm.
properly cook your spaghetti anymore. But I think that will
Yeah,
come a bit later.
definitely. I'm really intrigued to hear more about your experiences as well, especially in sales. You said one thing, just to go back though, you said one thing with the different
Yeah.
perceptions depending on generation, while still all generations don't seem to like to talk about it. What, where do you see the differences? Because right now I'm like, okay, but then both don't want to talk about it, but both see it differently. Like how would you define that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course it does. So, just by giving a very blunt example, if you break your ankle or if your knee cap springs out, it's quite obvious that something is not right, that something happened to you, and that you need to take some rest, that you need to go to the doctors, that you might also have to stay a while at the hospital, just because we can see that there is some kind of issue with your body. But as soon as we're talking about mental health or things that affect you mentally, it's very hard of
Hmm.
picturing this or of pinning it down to one thing that's not right with your body, just because it all happens in your brain. It happens
Hmm.
with emotions, it happens with thoughts. It also might pull up some childhood
Hmm.
trauma or stuff like that. So of course you're having a hard time to talk about it because it's a super
Hmm.
private thing. And most of the people that speak up about their mental situation and also their mental health and maybe also their issues with mental health have never spoken to anybody else before
Hmm.
publicly. So you're sharing something that is very private, that is very you, and that which makes you even
Hmm.
more vulnerable than telling people that you're you broke your foot or anything else, because it's obvious, but having mental health issues
Hmm.
isn't obvious.
What made you go into that topic? Why are you now starting to publicly open up to that? And share your experiences?
Because I've seen quite many people that were struggling the same way I was struggling, but we all just swept it under the rug and always said, well, but it has to be that way. I know so many people that aspire to be on top of the leaderboard, on top of anywhere else in the world throughout their career. And most of them are struggling, but nobody says something about it. So I'm just the one who's moaning around. It can't be that bad. So I'm just going to keep going. And just keeping going or just, staying with it at one point in time just made me almost break myself. And I don't think that anybody in this world, especially young professionals that come fresh from university, start into their first jobs, should sacrifice their health and themselves as a tool in sales, just to hit quota or to, get rid of the junior title in the junior SDR, to aspire to become an AE sometimes. Because it's worth it just slowing down from time to time and taking the time that you really need.
You said a lot of things that I feel like are crucial, especially the part with you don't really see until you're struggling, because you don't have a broken bone. You just have gradually increasing pain, which is emotional. You can't even explain it. With that in mind, and I am very, very sure that 9 out of 10 people are struggling with mental health, myself included, very much so. And I have I see my triggers, I see my moments, for me, it always feels like I'm running around in my own brain. And I'm like going to the left, and then I go to the left, to the right, and then I'm like, okay, wait a minute. So no, I actually have to, no, wait, it's here. Okay, wait. Okay, cool. Calm down. This is my trigger. And when I see that now, because people have spoken about it, I'm like, okay, cool. I actually need to just calm down for a moment. No one is going to die if I do not do this right now. Especially in sales with such high pressure, what do you feel like what are the challenges and the triggers maybe that people should know about to sensitize? Is that the word? Like to be sensitive towards their own trigger?
Well, it actually, again, it depends, because the reason why so many people that work in sales are on the verge of being burnt out, or at least to experience some serious mental health issues, is, for example, very obvious, the thing about the targets that we have. If you read any kind of leadership or sales leadership book, one of the chapters will definitely always be that the targets that you set for your reps have to be smart. So at some point achievable. On the contrary, 86% of sales professionals miss target month after month after month after month. That's roughly 9 out of 10 salespeople that repeatedly miss target. The thing is, once we hit target, there's something good waiting for us. So maybe more commission or a raise or a new title or something else. So you achieve something good and you earn something good in return. On the flip side, if you miss target repeatedly, there's only bad things waiting for you. So no commission, maybe a decrease in commission, the one or the other private chat with your manager. And most of the times, we all know that if you have a one-on-one that you didn't await, booked in your calendar from 1 minute to the other with your managers and maybe also HR, that's nothing good. That's no good sign, right? So all we have is these, most of the times, unachievable targets that haunt us day after day after day. And whenever we, for example, close a deal as AEs, there are certain transmitters and hormones that our brain produces. And same thing as with sugar or alcohol, for example, we're getting dependent of these transmitters and hormones, meaning that whenever we close a deal, we're on a high, and whenever we don't close a deal or we lose a deal, we're on a very, very low path. So we get dependent on, being successful, and we get haunted by not being successful. So we're even more stressed than anybody else in the working world. And specifically talking about triggers, the main trigger is if you can't take yourself and your personal life and you as a person out of your business persona. So if you can't properly, shut off or shut down after you just close your laptop at the end of the day, and you overly identify yourself with your job, you're more on, you're more on the path for being burnt out and having some serious mental health issues, just because you don't get your distance from what you're doing from 9 to 5.